In response to a group of concerned Montgomery County parents, outraged that the school board will not allow them to opt out of LGBT gender ideology being pushed on their kids in elementary schools, Councilmember Kristin Mink equated members of Family Rights for Religious Freedom, a group which also includes Christian and Muslim members, as white supremacists. Mark, Councilmember Mink stated that some Muslim families are on the same side of an issue as white supremacists and outright bigots. How is it that we've evolved to a point where parents who disagree with a school board decision are being viciously attacked by our elected representatives on the county council?
Well, I think the challenge here is that the diversity means diversity of identity and doesn't mean diversity of opinion. As a result, there's an intolerance of a variety of opinions which clearly exist when it frankly diverges from what people like Councilwoman Mink believe. And I got to say, she is in fact a serial offender of this. Of course, she ended up having to apologize for her comments about Zionist Jews, which is a great example of where the intersection of both identity and opinion come together.
Well, I'm just, flabbergasted that, in the last 20 years, the intolerance that we have for one another seems to continually be on the rise. So it's just surprising. Mike, 2 years ago, there was a political uprising by parents in the state of Virginia who were also frustrated that their parental rights were being ignored by the school system. That incident contributed to the election of Republican Glenn Youngkin as governor. We've been kind of waiting for this to occur in Montgomery County, but are we now on the precipice of such a revolt here in our own county?
I don't think we are. I think that you and Mark both recognize the issues, and I think it's one of intolerance. I think we've created a situation in communities where we used to be focused on how do we actually bring people together and how do we address and make our school system stronger. And unfortunately, we've got lots of folks who are trying to find very divisive issues on all sides of ideology, unfortunately. And we end up focusing a lot of time on more, I don't say they're fringe issues, but they're issues where we can provide a wedge and we can drive that wedge in, and then we try and figure out whose side everybody is on and get people to comment on it. And I just think it's a very unfortunate scenario, but we've seen this evolve over the last 6 to 8 years, and it's not just our schools, it takes place all over the place. And we've got to figure out ways to not just, as we saw, I think, in Northern Virginia, the current governor saw this as a political opportunity, kind of saw the parade and ran and got in front of the parade. And I think what we've got to be able to do is to get back to a point where our elected officials and community leaders are, in fact, leading and bringing people back together, not kind of feeding into the divisiveness.
Well, I got to disagree with you slightly, and particularly about this topic. And I think it's important to note that the Montgomery County School Board has taken a more radical position on this subject than even the state, and saying that parents do not have the right to opt out of these teachings. And I think this is also a fundamental issue. It's that not only are we intolerant, but our leaders are intolerant of the views of the people that are their constituency. The parents, parents are the first teachers of their children, not the Montgomery County public school system.
That is true. Although I think one of the things that's important is there's, again, this notion of somehow we're teaching ideology. And the issue is these are books that are being read to talk about people in communities, people in environment, people in space. And so there's a notion that people want to say, oh, we're trying to present an ideology. And I don't agree that people are presenting an ideology. I think people want to say that story, but I think we're actually trying to create opportunities where students can see themselves and see people in their families and in their communities represented in the books that they read and the conversations they have. And people want to talk about that as trying to change people's ideology. And the reality is, I think we're trying to get to a point that we're showing what inclusivity actually looks like.
Well, Mark, I'm going to let you have the last word on this. We got to go to break.
Again, and I would come back to there are a diversity of perspectives and opinions, and all too often the focus is exclusively on diversity of identity and not addressing what are differences of opinion that deserve to be aired.